It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday we are talking, are you man enough? And this is inspired by last week, but also the surprising reactions I got to Monday's video. God, I can't believe I'm recording this on Friday because I've got an event on the weekend. I can't believe that was only 6 days ago because I recorded that Sunday night. But yeah, the responses to that were surprising, but also conversations over the week that had to do with men feeling like they somehow weren't being a man or weren't being enough of a man because they felt nervousness or apprehension or even fear about something. And I want to talk about that today. I'll do the help support this channel and then get right into it. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it, who can't afford it, who needs to work out some of this stuff, coffee.com/LeannaK. I remember that whole what is a woman thing from a while back. I mean, it's not going to stop because American politics, but this idea that woman is innate, man is something you're measured against. I hear a lot about that women just are protected or given things because of some innate value in society. And then we talk to women and women are like, what planet is this? And that's okay, right? Not understanding what it's like to be on the other side is going to happen in a society where we don't talk to each other. We just fight about this stuff. And I think the fact that it's what is a woman, adult human female, instead of what is a man, we don't think adult human male, right? Because men are told to man up. Men are told to be a man. You don't have to be told to be a man if you're just a man merely by existing. And trust me, it's not true that you're a woman just for existing, because I'm constantly chastised and checked for not being woman enough, not being feminine enough because of that whole nurturing thing. But, you know, we come back to the word bitch on that one, which is, you know, oh, you defy gender roles somehow, you're a bitch. And that goes for men and women. And that particular insult says a lot about what we expect from men and what we expect from women. The Cambridge Dictionary definition for be man enough is to be brave enough to do something. And so bravery is an inherently masculine characteristic, which I don't like. I think that we should generally appreciate bravery in people. I mean, women have to be plenty brave a lot of the time. Now, is there more social license for women to not be brave? Under certain circumstances, sure. But then we have the Sarah Bareilles song, you know, I want to see you be brave. That one. That's going to be stuck in your head now. But there definitely is this idea of bravery. The problem is that often this is leveraged against men to make them do stupid things or self-destructive things. And that's not bravery. That, like I said, that's self-destruction, right? Similarly, when we talk about strength can become bullying. And I find this a lot with insecure, well, lately it's been insecure men over 45, we'll say 50, but they can't distinguish between strength and bullying. And so they are so afraid of being seen as cowardly that they'll get in my face in really passive aggressive ways, and you can imagine how well that goes, right? And then there's resilience, and this is not talked about enough, because a lot of the things inherent in the institutionalized sexism, with the whole be a man mind virus, if you will, is it the problem with a lot of this stuff is it does push men into states where they lack resilience, which means they're so almost at breaking point that there's no give, right? They can't take on anymore because they're already like straining at the seams in terms of stress and distress tolerance. And that has health implications as well as mental health implications. I mean, God, the statistics on diabetes that just came out, and diabetes is a condition made worse by stress, right? Heart issues made worse by stress. A lot of stuff, blood pressure made worse by stress, right? So if you have this belief that you just have to be constantly walking around clenched, that's what it means to be a man, that's obviously unhealthy. And I know a lot of guys right now are going, easier said than done changing that, because every woman in my life is pushing me into that. Right, exactly. This is why there have to be discussions about men with women around. And the same reason there has to be discussions about women with men around. There are profound lack of understanding of what, men and women go through in the experience of being men and women. And then the fact that people are just individuals, right? Still blown away by people thinking I was shaming men who aren't male strippers. And there's an example of, I keep going back to it because it's like, is being a male stripper a terribly high value profession? Maybe it is now, but it's that idea of physical attractiveness and the sudden getting as stupid with men as we've been with women for 50 years, right? All of a sudden, there's been this increased focus on, right, the workouts and the dieting and all the stuff so the guys can have like these, superhero bodies. But I invite you to look at pictures of, Chris Hemsworth or Jason Momoa or people like that when they're not doing a movie. They look a lot different, because that stuff, if you don't cycle, you start losing the ability to trick your body into putting on that kind of muscle. And I really wish that, there was something a little bit more sustainable in appearance. Does everyone have to look like a Rob Liefeld character? It's weird, right? Because we're taking pressures off women in that regard, but we've just transferred them to men. And okay, there's a lot more diversity in how men are allowed to look on camera than women during the Buffy the Vampire Slayer era. The minute that show, and maybe this was just correlation, not causation, but that was the period where everyone but the cast of Charmed was just extremely skinny. Like skinny. And, bobblehead brat dolls skinny was a shitty time to look like me back then. And we haven't gotten quite that bad, but there is definitely this increased focus on how men look. And if you get consumed by the algorithm, you can find pockets of the internet where women talk about things like the 666 and all that stuff. And it's easy to think that, oh, this is all women want. It's hopeless. And this is where I find when I talk to men about this stuff, they start being very unsympathetic to other men. That's when they're like, oh, boo-hoo, and come on. And I don't know when that's ever worked. Every person has insecurities. And so, oh, boo-hoo, toughen up has never made somebody feel more secure ever. But I find men do this to other men. And it's funny because I hear men do that, at least in my experience, more than women do. And yet I hear women get blamed for that kind of messaging more than men do. And, those Gillette ads come out and women got blamed somehow. I was like, the razor's marketed to men. Okay, I buy the Mach 3s because I just find they work in certain body parts better than others. But that was a marketing agency coming up with that ad aimed at men. And I mean, we're definitely seeing a diversion in non-college educated men and college educated men, for sure. I mean, even in terms of the types of women they're exposed to and what these women want. But I see plenty of, normal looking people hooking up, falling in love, all that good stuff. And they're happy, right? And this is where we get into the problem with rejection when we misunderstand bravery, strength, and resilience, right? And if you don't understand bravery and strength, you end up with no resilience. And this is where this video is going. But I just wanted to sort of set the table, acknowledge the problem, acknowledge that there's there's a real lack of sympathy for men struggling with these issues. And I want to offer something different, right? And that, again, the me going, you shamed men who aren't male strippers. That's not making fun of the person that said that. That's making fun of me being so burnt at that. Like, that comment clearly made complete sense to whoever put that there. And I do not know where to begin. So I'm going to begin here. Okay. Bravery is not being afraid. Bravery is being afraid and overcoming the freeze, fight, fawn, or flight response, right? And then it's getting up and doing it again if you don't manage to totally overcome that, right? It's that brush yourself up and try again, that song. But it's not feeling fear. It's not feeling nerves. My God, I would do absolutely nothing in my life if I had to wait until I wasn't nervous about doing it. Going back to trade shows was terrifying for me. And the thing I found was that it focused the mind for me. And it led me to go, you know what? These things I've just been sucking up, I'm not going to suck them up anymore. And I stood up for myself, and it was scary because I was dealing with a guy because, he had a lot more money than me. I was intimidated. And it turned out he was pretty intimidated by me too. And apparently I was more intimidating than him because, long story short, the whole thing ended with him literally running away from me after insisting he wasn't a coward. And that was an interesting moment because I had not brought cowardice into the conversation. And so the fact that that word came up, clearly it was front of mind somewhere. And that's when being scared, being intimidated is not being cowardly. Behaving in shitty ways because you're scared, that's cowardly, right? Making other people suffer, taking out that fear on other people, that is cowardly. That's why partners who abuse their partners of all genders, cowards. Abuse is the ultimate act of a coward, because the only way they can feel bigger is to bust up everybody around them or specific people around them, right? Instead of standing up to the people bullying them, they just move the cycle along the chain and, bully other people. That is cowardice. That is not having strength of character, right? That's it right there. Bravery is going, you know what? I'm scared. So I'm going to be more careful with what I say and do. Bravery is feeling afraid and really wanting to lash out because of that and not doing it. That's why it's interesting because I cut ties about more than a month ago now, of someone who was much bigger on name calling than I am. Granted, that's not saying much because I'm not big on name calling at all. And I let other people do what they're going to do. Everybody's got to sleep at night. But the more I think about that, the more I probably should have taken that more seriously. And that's something that I got beaten down about because it's of all the gross sense of humor, all that stuff. And so I kind of went, all right, I have a particularly high bar on that one. So I'm not going to expect people to meet the same standard I set for myself there, because I know that I do it just because I think it weakens you in an argument. And it's not like I've never name called. I only, do it if somebody's being such a jerk that I'm just like, I'm going to have a bit of fun with this guy. I have no interest in persuading them. And it's not always a guy. Guy I use as a gender neutral term. I do it with these, like, the anti part of the internet. When they come at me, I'm just like, oh no, we're just gonna goof around here because the fuck. But you got to be careful, right? Because anytime you take the low road in public, it can be used against you. And I get called plenty of names. I always think when people go to that, it's like, well, I just took you a lot less seriously and I behave accordingly. But now I think that should have been a warning sign sooner. And I've learned from that. There's, having to constantly be in conflict suggests to me that that particular person is running from something, because conflict's tiring, man. I can only do so much of it. I like things being chill. I have to deal with a lot of conflict. I've gotten used to it. That doesn't mean I like it. And one of the things to keep in mind, I plan to do, I've got a note here, but the thing about distress tolerance, you got to think of it as a battery, not a generator. So you can only just endure for so long. It's not going to be forever. And unfortunately, I think we've polluted the sort of culture with too many stories of men with no friends who are just miserable, like, kind of the Marvel Comics anti-heroes. I know I love these characters, but we need to talk about this because the characters can exist, but, let's see them for what they are. In life, there isn't going to be, say, a Professor Xavier who comes along and saves you from your own self-loathing with literal mind reading, right? That's not the way life works. It would be great. And I do think there is this expectation with too many people that the perfect person's going to come along and be able to anticipate your needs. And that's just not, it may happen occasionally, it may happen short term, but that's a fluke. In order to maintain relationships on a regular basis, you have to know what you need and know how to ask for it, right? And I think a lot of women really dump on men and leave men feeling like they can't win and they can't express any emotion because those women, it's just multi-generational nagging kind of thing. They've never learned to just say, look, I need you to do this for me. It's hinting and expectation and so many people say they don't like it, but they perpetuate it. I was talking to somebody last week where, this female friend is like, you can tell me, set boundaries whenever you need to. And I said, yeah, have you tried that? And the person said, well, no, because basically they thought the person probably meant it, but they didn't want to test it because the person seemed too unstable. You gotta walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And, there are men out there that don't walk the walk. There are women out there that don't walk the walk. And if you believe that, all of culture responds to these people in the same way, it's not so. The problem we have right now is that the collections of people are so big as to be unnatural. Back for the bulk of human existence, human beings encountered 150 to 300 people in our entire lives, certainly at any one time. That's what our brains are designed for. These close communities where character and accountability and integrity mattered. Your word mattered. If you didn't hold up your end, you didn't get to stay with the group, kind of thing. And that didn't mean a single role. This is what's interesting. When we had those smaller groups, there was much greater tolerance for people who just didn't conform to gender norms and ideals. It was, you need to do something for society. You might not be able to do the typical thing, but you could do this other thing. Okay, go do this other thing, right? There were specific roles in society for instance, older people, people with illnesses and disabilities. Everybody contributed in their own way. And, experience really mattered in those things because we weren't drowning in credentialism. 50 years of experience in something is much, I put much more stock in that than a 4-year degree plus, a master's and a PhD, just way more experience, right? But we lost that when everything became regimented and big. And I really think we lost a lot of masculine rites of passage with that, right? There's certain biological functions in a woman's life that are sort of, okay, you're a woman now, right? Menstruating is one. Women have different stages of life based on whether you menstruate or not, right? There's a time before and hopefully a time after. And society's really cruel about that time after. Let me fucking tell you. And that needs to stop. But for men, there aren't those biological things. Like, yes, puberty happens, but where are those rites of passage? We've really lost them. People don't even learn to drive anymore. That was a major thing for me. Driving and voting were two big things. I really didn't give a crap about prom, but I found out that there's a major furry convention in Toronto that's at where one of my proms was. So I kind of want to go to that just because of that. It seems cool. But is that weird to like go if you guys? I guess I could wear ears. Anyway, I digress. I'm like, is it weird to go to a furry con if you're not furry enough? That's the way I think. But we don't have these milestones for men anymore. And men are getting lost. And it's not too bad. We have to stop doing that. This too bad thing, we have to stop. It's too bad for all of us that men are so isolated and so lacking resilience. And again, you don't just get resilience on its own. You get resilience by learning to manage and balance and boundaries, right? And so many elements of misunderstood masculinity smash those boundaries instead of build them. And that's why I'm focusing in this video on bravery and strength of character. If a boy or a young man is afraid, we don't just go too bad. We, first of all, find out if the fear is warranted, because feelings are feedback, right? If something's super dangerous, what are you teaching them? Too bad. Go anyway. Right? That's why back in the day, it was all these tales of glory and valor, right? Like, oh, if you do it and you survive, you'll be, championed as a hero. It was always bullshit. Ask any veteran. But, we whip to do a carrot as well as a stick. Now it's all stick. Just do it. Oh, I'm nervous to talk to girls. Just do it. That's just going to compound the fear, right? Being afraid isn't cowardice. Again, being an asshole because you're afraid is cowardice. Similarly, not knowing what to do or being confused or feeling overwhelmed doesn't mean you lack character. You're just lost. You're lacking direction, not character. Strength of character involves giving other people choices while you maintain your right to make choices as well. And if you're going, this is the exact opposite of everything I've ever been told, exactly. That's the problem. In some ways, we've taught women all the wrong lessons too, but we've taught men all the wrong lessons regarding what is actually going to make you feel centered and whole and strong. There's still time. But, are you man enough? Do you care about people? Then you're man enough, right? Do you fulfill your obligations while still setting boundaries? Well, then you're man enough, Do you, look after the people in your life the way they want to be looked after, not the way you think they should? Then you're man enough, right? Do you give back to the community, to your family? Yes? Then you're man enough. You don't have to meet some weird, arbitrary, social, what you believe is an ideal that if you ask most women that you'd probably be treated well by, they don't find these things at all important. And that's a funny thing. When I say what I like, someone always accuses me of lying. It's funny when my husband says those kind of guys aren't her type. Other men go, oh yeah, sure. And fortunately, he just laughs. He told me about one of these stories recently and I was like, oh, that's awkward. But he thought it was funny. Which, okay, good. I feel like I kind of did my job there. Because, He felt like enough there. Like he felt good enough as he was. My husband looks something like Solus from Veilguard. The similarities are not lost on me. But you know, that's, find people who appreciate you for you without making excuses for you, right? You want people who are going to challenge you and set boundaries so you don't constantly have to worry that you're doing something wrong. That's how you're going to feel less afraid. You know, I think back to the times where I was afraid all the time. And so now when I'm feeling fear for too prolonged a period, something inside me goes like, nope, not going back. Because I was so scared all the time, I wasn't feeling it. And when you come out of that, oh man, do you know how to see the signs in other people, right? Thank God. Well, okay, I'd say thank God, but I worked really hard to not be afraid all the time. I worked really hard to not be angry all the time. It is possible to be able to feel fear and feel anger and like do it anyway. Or sometimes go, no, this isn't worth the fear. This isn't worth the anger. And there are people who are worth being afraid for. There are definitely people who are worth being angry for. And then there are some people who have just not held up their end. And I do think that we need to start rewarding the good behavior and not just punish the bad. Because if we're like, no, state, punish, then it's all punishment. One of the things we try to do on the Discord is reward people admitting they made a mistake. Like, not the same mistake again and again and again. But if somebody's like, yeah, I messed up, we're like, cool. You know, awesome. We're cool again, right? You know, there are a few people I've had to let back into the server because they had a bad reaction to something, quit, and then was like, I shouldn't have done that. And I say to them, you know, lately it's been all guys. But I say to them, thank you for telling me what happened. And they say, I thought you'd be mad at me. I'm like, I'm never going to be mad at you for having a bad reaction and deciding to nope out instead of like attacking someone. And it's all good. It's not a one-way trip. We talked about it. We have an understanding. You know, there's a reason we separate certain content types so people can avoid it. But that's positive to me. And I think that it takes a certain type of bravery to say when something hit a guy that hard, especially guys, because it is, let's face it, not as socially supported actively as for women. And I do wish we could pivot the discussion from men's rights, which you end up fighting about the definition, to men's supports, which everyone who knows anything about the issue can agree there just aren't enough of. Okay? Hopefully you found this video useful. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Both these get access to our Discord. Invites go out the beginning of each month. Thanks for watching. Manly Mondays.